there's so many.
I just talked that into my phone.
That's the challenge, is
There you
kind
go.
of that price.
Yeah, it's gonna take over. All right. Welcome to the White Sand Lake Association annual meeting that was created in about 3 seconds by AI when I walked in here. I thought we should have a logo. So I asked it to create a logo. That's pretty nice, isn't it? I hope it doesn't take over the world. A lot of people are kind of fearful of that, yeah. But anyway, thank you for coming. My name is Brian Wallace. I have been the president for a few years, but not as long as Mr. Dan Larson was over here. We'll talk about that a little bit later. I'm going to talk about a few items that I would like to cover. This is being recorded, so anything that you say will be out there on a YouTube clip that will eventually wind up on our website and the Facebook page, I believe. So just be careful what you ask for, what questions you ask. No, I'm just kidding. So anyway, I have been on the lake since 1994. Seen it go through a lot of changes over time, and we're definitely at a point right now where it's kind of going down, isn't it? And the whole lake level thing is, obviously, as you guys know, you've been on the lake as well for a very long time, and it comes and goes. We have had a few calls to the DNR that are concerned citizens about the lake level. But the DNR basically just says, well, but look at the history, and they must be fairly new residents. That I don't see any new residents in here, I don't think, but maybe those are the ones that are mostly concerned. So this message is to those people that maybe are concerned about the lake level. It will come back. It may take years, it may take till this fall. We don't know, right? So it's all cyclical, and it all is based on the amount of rainfall that we get. And so we'll be fine. It will be totally fine. The first thing I want to take care of, though, is that crackling or is it just me?
It's crackling. Sound like the storm last night.
Yeah. Is it just that speaker? I'll try to be gentle. Okay. First thing that we need to decide, a very official piece of business, what time are we doing the 4th of July parade? Last year, we talked about this, and it was 12 o'clock and 11 o'clock were the two choices. If you remember correctly, we kind of had a split right down the middle, and somebody said, I don't know who it was, said, how about 11:30? And that's what we went with. That's what was decided, and it seemed to work out really well for everyone. Does anybody have a problem with 11:30 again this year? Anybody have a real objection to that? Okay. No? Seeing no objections, we'll go ahead with the 11:30 time. That's the really important thing of the night right there. I shouldn't say that because the financial report is kind of next on my list. Unfortunately, Bob Nelson is on a crazy, amazing trip. He and his wife left for, it's Norway, right? They went to Norway, and they haven't come back now. It's been weeks. Yeah. Now, I think they had a plan, but it's still, I think 5 or 6 weeks. So we wish them well. Safe travels to Bob. He might see this video a little bit later, but he is not here. He gave me the actual financial report as of today. Yes, today. Currently, we have $10,654 in our checking account. And so we have quite a few memberships that have come in. We have several memberships that are being paid today, and several that will come in before, as the near future rolls along. But we've had a good year so far. I said that in the last email about how it's actually up from last year, which is great. The trend is up, so that's good. And so we hope to keep that momentum going, because as you know, stuff is not free to take care of our lake. It's very expensive, and hopefully we can get even more participation and set a record this year. Thank you for those that have paid already this year. It's not easy sometimes just to write out a check, and it seems like you're just giving it away, but you're not. It's really the longevity and the health of our lake that's at stake. So it's very, very important that we do raise those funds, because otherwise we can't take care of the things that need to be taken care of when it comes to the AIS issue. Okay, and if you do pay your membership, Bob's been really good about getting the stickers on the year the year that you last paid onto your sign. He being gone, that's not going to happen for a while. And so hopefully by the end of July, if he does decide to come back, I don't know what we're going to do if he doesn't decide to come back. So if he comes back, he'll run you ever seen his golf cart running around the lake when he puts the stickers on? Have you ever seen that? It's kind of cute. Anyway, he'll be bringing the stickers around when he can do that. Quick thing right up here. I don't know if you noticed this wooden, very colorful lake map here. This is something that my neighbors gave me, and Amanda Calder is the person who put all that together. She has a laser cutter and has the ability and the know-how to put things together like that. I asked her if she wanted me to show it. She wasn't ever intending to sell them, but if you are interested, I do have permission to share that with you, and also her email. I will put that email in an email, and maybe a little picture along with it for those people that couldn't make it tonight, so they can see a little closer up. It's actually, they're my next door neighbors. They moved into Bob and Lorraine Eric's house, Chris and Amanda, and they're only up for the weekends, and they gave this to us as a gift for helping them out with a few things. It's got a little star right here where my house is. It has information here about the lake, number of acres, and so forth. And it's really cool. It's very 3D. You've seen these before, but this one I just thought was really unique to others that I've seen. I love the colors. So if you're interested, you can look at this later, a little closer up, and then I will give an email or send out an email with her contact information on it. Okay. And if you have a question at any time, please raise your hand. This is very informal, and take care of it along the way here. So there is something that kind of just came out recently, a flyer that I received, and Laurel Mesner actually stopped by my house today. She can't make it to the meeting tonight either, but she is kind of big into the Loon Center right now, and she also knows the whitefish. It's called WAPOA, Whitefish Area. Maybe somebody can help me with that. It's their lake association. What is it called?
It's the Whitefish Area Property Owners Association.
Well, there you go. Nice job.
Thank you.
Need somebody that would know that. So anyway, this flyer has some information, and it's got a QR code here. If you are interested in being an early detection volunteer. Now, as you know, we got milfoil. What year, Dan?
It was 2015.
2015, and who discovered that in the first place?
It was a person that was doing the inspector at the access.
Okay.
And it was a young lady who just happened to be walking down to the beach. She had a little extra time, and she noticed
She's like, oh.
like one of the leaves coming in, and she looked at it, she knew enough that it was milfoil, and
Okay.
she notified Dan Swanson, the invasive species specialist, and within 2 weeks, though, we had a meeting. We had actually treated that area, but it was anyway. That was the beginning. It was at the access,
Yeah.
and so it's
And it's really important to try to discover these things early to put a lid on them. Unfortunately, some of it got out, and we've been dealing with it now for a long time. But there are other invasive species, as you know. The zebra mussel problem came along last summer, and in some places that gets us really bad. Anybody have a really bad, a bunch of zebras on their dock posts or their lift or anything? Over by, the east side? Yeah, that's where you guys are. You have two?
I can't remember, no, but Michelle Burris said for
Yep.
the neighbors, not Halls, on the other side, by Leland's, that they've already seen a lot. of
They've seen a lot.
apples.
And the Lelands and the Zenke's have both reported
Okay.
lots of them. Here's the thing about them though, when they were discovered last fall, I said, has anybody else, through an email, I said, has anybody else detected or seen them? And they came from all over the lake. And they were just onesie twosies, but literally around the entire lake, we had addresses, and so I asked David from PLM, I said, is there anything we can do to jump on this right now? And basically the answer is no, and Sarah can probably speak to this a lot more than I can, with a lot more experience, but they will peak at a certain year. We won't be able to stop that in David's estimation. He did give me many examples of where they've tried. They've only really been successful, I think, in one lake. I want to say it's maybe, is it Ruth Lake, I think it was, he said in an email. And, but that was a spot where they only found them in one spot. They were able to literally like put a barrier around that and then just basically blast it with copper sulfate, I think it's what they use. And so they were able to get rid of them, and they haven't seen them for years. Now, that's the only example he gave me that was successful. He gave me a lot of examples that weren't as successful. So that's kind of where we're at right now. We'll keep an eye on it, but again, we're gonna see our water change. Again, I asked Sarah Fagdru to come in tonight, water specialist, and discuss our water in our lake, and I think you're gonna find that really interesting, a lot more than I could interest you, I'm sure. So, but that's kind of where we're at with that. But this volunteer program, you guys, if anybody would like, and maybe this is something that I'll pick up after I'm done as the president, but to be an early detection volunteer, so the other things that are out there are just as nasty as milfoil, in what I've heard anyway. The starry stonewort thing happened on Rush Lake up in the Whitefish Chain, and they kind of went crazy last summer trying to get rid of it. So, but if we can stop it early, if we can detect it early, there's a chance that we can take care of that. So if anyone else is interested in that, please let me know after the meeting. So, update on the milfoil. We've spent a lot of money over the years. I think, in my opinion, I feel that PLM and our board has done a really good job. It is crazy when you think about how many acres have had to be treated over these years, and I'm talking about the last 6 years, and I put those numbers in the email that you got lately. And I mean, if you total that up, that's almost $100,000, all voluntarily given by people that live on the lake. That does include some grant money, but those grants they're not huge. They're $3,000, $4,000. We got one big one, if you remember, a few years ago, and then we didn't have milfoil that year. It was a very low year, so unfortunately we missed out on most of that money. But thank you for those of you that have helped by contributing dollars. That's really the only way we can keep it under control. And I don't know about you, but when I was out on the lake just the other day, I was cruising around the shoreline like a lot of people do, and literally I only found one location. Now, it wasn't great light. I was gonna go back out again like in the morning where I could really see into the water. But I only found one patch, and it was over on kind of over in your direction,
Yeah,
that north.
to the left of the axis that faces the lake.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
went by there, yeah, there's that.
And you see, that area was not treated last year, but the areas that were, it appeared to me anyway, a very non-professional detector. I didn't see any, so that was really good, because there have been some years where we've treated, and then all of a sudden there it is again the next year. But this year, so far, knock on wood, it looked pretty good. And if my eyes are not deceiving me, then we might be in pretty good shape for this year. That would be really, really good, because last year, if you remember, we treated, Bob was here, he'd give me the number, was it like 24 acres, I think, something like that?
Right?
Yes.
There's several of us, I'm not sure about the whole way around, but especially on the access side, that are having PLM come a couple times during the summer to treat, because we seem to continue
Yes.
have it.
Well, and actually that was kind of another bullet on here. I feel very appreciative to those of you that have, paid that extra amount of money out of your own pocket to treat the area around, where you live. And that has to have helped as well over time, has to have. And so thank you for that, for those of you that, have they done it yet?
Yes.
Because I saw an orange sign on your dot, but I didn't see any other orange.
I think it was like 610.
Yeah, they did about 4 of us.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. Now, I didn't notice any other orange signs, but that's okay. Just making sure I don't miss anything here. Okay. So, milfoil was, when I heard that it was found and, I had gone to some meetings, I wasn't on the board. I kind of was for a while, then I wasn't, but when I heard that milfoil was discovered, and that was kind of the push that got me involved in being on the board and then becoming president. And I just feel like we've done a good job over the last many years as a board to stay ahead of that. And so all you board members in here, thank you for that. Who is currently here that is on the board? Matt, Bill, Dan, and Mike and Lauren. And yeah, thank you so much. And Jennifer, unsolicited in the back there, actually took it upon herself again to do ice cream floats. So thank you to her again for that. We will do that as soon as I'm done blabbing here, and between me and handing it over to Sarah. Okay, so very soon, I promise. So there's lots of challenges. Don't talk that loud. Okay. There are lots of challenges ahead when it comes to additional AIS issues. Not only the milfoil and the zebra mussels, but other things coming in. And I really feel it's time to move on and let someone else become president. You have seen that in my emails. I will be stepping down. I picked August. I don't know why. I think it was maybe August of 2019 that I decided to get more involved. And so I just thought, well, that's the right month to turn it over. I have not heard from any board members that they are ready to jump on being the president. So we'll probably need to find someone outside the board at this point. And now I'm talking to the video machine. It's you and the people around you. Somebody needs to really kind of take the torch and carry it on, because there are more challenges that will come our way, and we need to stay on top of them if we want our lake to be, healthy in the future. And so hopefully I have not heard from anyone yet. It's been silence, but as August approaches, maybe that will change. So hopefully I will hear from someone. We do have a new water tester. So Mike Smith, if you are listening to this or watching this, thank you for stepping up to do that. Derek Hendrickson was our person that has turned in for probably 6 years, 5-6 years, 3 to 4 samples a year, going out, making sure you do the samples correctly, getting the water samples to AW Research, and he's done a great job of that. So thank you, Derek. You're not here tonight, but thank you for that. And thank you, Mike Smith, for taking that over. Derek did tell me that he has all the stuff, and it should be coming soon, Sarah. So we kind of maybe have a sort of new person for the website. Bill Samartich has done that for as long as I've been president, kind of like Derek, and created the website. It's a great website. My next door neighbor, Chris, who is married to Amanda, they are weekend people. They're only up here when they can get up here right now with their young family and their work schedules. But he is interested in possibly helping out with that. And so hopefully we have found somebody to do that. But if anybody is watching this and has website skill, okay, please get a hold of me and maybe we can hook you up.
Right, it's not that difficult.
It's not that difficult. It's not like what is that site where it kind of creates it for you? Like, it's not Wiki, it's
Yeah.
What's it called? Yeah, GoDaddy, stuff like that. Do you have to do programming?
No.
No programming
Yeah,
involved?
but no.
Okay.
No,
So it's
pretty much
click and
just
drag
type
and-
something over, type in the box, you can format things and change things that way. But
Okay.
It's pretty simple.
So if you didn't hear that, it's clickable, draggable, cut, paste. If you want to get creative, it's not. So please, let me know if you are interested. I just want to say there are really, the friendships that I've had on the board over these years has been really great. There are amazing people involved, and I hope they continue to stay involved. I'm not going anywhere, we're not moving. Even though my next door neighbor to myself it's gonna change over again now. That house has only been owned for, well, I wanna say it's 2 years, and they have decided to move back to the metro. So that house is gonna be coming up for sale, soon.
Is it the neighborhood?
I think it's the next door neighbors. We were good for so long with the same people, and then all of a sudden it's been a revolving door. All right. So now I will take any questions that you might have for me. If I find something that I didn't cover on here, then I will mention it after Sarah is finished. But yeah, any questions, please, Dan. Nice and loud.
So, when do you think we should do a survey with PLM, connecting with Dave?
Yeah, so I asked that same question, I want to say in March, April, maybe. I said, so are we gonna do the survey in early June and treat like early, or are we gonna let it go? If you remember last year, we did do it early. We did the survey before the end of June, and the treatment was early as well, like early September. He suggested waiting until mid-July to do the actual what's it called? Delineation, yeah. Delineation survey, and then when that's done, then they will decide how and where and when. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, just kind of wondering how.
Yeah, what we're looking at for this year? Yeah, thanks for the question. Yeah,
Because our water comes from Red Center,
yeah.
and normally when we're not getting water, it could be the drug or whatever. Are we sure it's not going to Gull River?
No, but I don't think so, because it has to reach a certain level before it reaches that outlet, right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not quite high before.
And I talked to you about that ditch 10. Did you go over there and look at that at all since we talked about that? Yeah, they've cleaned it out. There's actually water coming from north of that business on 77, coming under the road, kind of from the North Long Lake area, and coming this direction. But the water table is just so low. But I was talking to Ken earlier about, so right now you measured your beach at how many feet it was?
77 feet,
77 feet
Yeah,
of beach from your sand to the edge of the water.
the grass to the water.
But this is interesting because they've lived in that same location for a lot of years. The maximum amount of feet you had was
330.
330
That's a lot
feet.
of sand.
So thank you for bringing this up, because I did get a call today from the DNR. They were concerned about the number of people concerning of the water level, and that information right there should just show you that it's okay. It will be fine. You might not think it's going to come up again someday, but it probably will, right? The concern, though, one person had was over a beaver dam on the red sand side of the channel. Not at the culvert by the road, but at the outlet. Now, I know that's like marked no trespassing. I've never gone back there. Has anyone ever walked back there? Because the guy from the DNR said that's not a beaver dam over there. What?
It's a dam, it's not a beaver dam.
It's a-
There's a working gate there that functions just like a regular dam.
Okay.
Although the DNR.
I didn't want to get arrested, so.
The DNR has said that gate has to remain open, just like the one on White Sand has to
Yeah.
remain open.
I want to say one thing about this same kind of issue, because it came up. Larry from the Red Sand Board. He's been the president over there. Larry, you know him, Larry, what's his last name? Was it? Kellerman, yeah, Larry Kellerman has been the president over there for a long time. And he called me this afternoon one day, and I'm like, okay, answer the phone, and he goes, I just want you to know, Red Sand is not suing White Sand. I'm like, that's great news, because I didn't know there was any news out there like that. Somehow that got started, but he goes, just if you hear those rumors, there's nothing in the works, nobody has talked about that, but somebody obviously had a conversation around that at some point, right? I mean, it's not, it
What are
started.
they not suing us for?
What's that?
What are they not?
What are they not suing us for? Water control,
Yeah.
control over the levels, yeah. Because I don't know how we would have control anyway.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, when they redid the Red Sand Park Dam there, they thought that they had it a foot lower than it probably should, but they think that when they put that in and redid it, that they had it lower so that more water would come our way.
Oh.
And they're thinking that when they changed that, so really, it wouldn't even be our deal, whoever.
Yeah, we didn't
Yeah.
put that in the
Yeah,
first
yeah.
place, right? I
So-
mean,
So that's their concern, they're thinking that they're losing.
that there was an incorrect measurement of that, what's it called, a weir? Or
Yeah.
something like that, yeah. So, rest assured, you can sleep tonight, you're not getting sued.
I mean, I think it's more important to make them allies of ours because
Yeah.
that ditch 10 going up, feeding water out of.
Yeah,
North
absolutely.
Long is more important to the both of us.
And I happen to know somebody who lives on the lake that I've had breakfast with, and their level was extremely far down as well. And that's just the way it is, that's the way the water table works, and we're in a very low swing right now, so, hopefully we see a bounce back soon.
And then,
Ryan,
Yes,
just a little piece of trivia, our neighbor is 95 years old, who used to live next door to us. He tells about the time when they used to cut hay out of the lake, and when you could walk across where the bay is down on the south end of the lake.
It was
you could walk
down.
across between the bay and the lake. So
that's crazy.
yeah, yeah.
And just remember everyone, the information is on Lake Finder, it's on the DNR, Minnesota DNR.
The data
Lake
from-
Finder, so there's lake level information back to 67, I think, so. And you can see there's a large excursion on the lake. It's
Well, I find it interesting to, like, over on the lake, on the side where Larson's live over there on that northeast side, it's such a much steeper, gradient than where I live. And you can't really, I mean, you can kind of see the vertical, but over at their place, you can see where the sandbags were like a year and a half ago. And now and it's like, it's gotta be, 4 feet, 5 feet, it's crazy.
Definitely, yeah, about
Yeah,
4 feet.
so, kind of fun.
And the
All right.
pond is not dry yet.
Yeah, the ice cream socials, or ice cream, what are they called? Sundays, floats, thank you. It's like Daryl at church last week. It's called, what? A trading post. Yeah. They are ready, so I will stop. I will answer any questions individually. In a few minutes, please take your seat again, and we'll get started with Sarah. I will introduce her at that point, okay? So go ahead and grab an ice cream sundae if you'd like. Thank you. Yeah, if you have some dues money, please give it over here to the office. Mike is sitting in for Bob tonight, right over here at this table. We will be giving away some prizes too here real soon, as soon as we get started. I know for a fact that one of them are very busy. It's not like some places where they're booked hours. But no, I haven't. I think actually, Warren, didn't you check into the whole verbal thing with the city manager? Can you explain what you found out? Okay. So, it's time for me to introduce our guest speaker here at our annual meeting, which is great. We always love to have a speaker, and I think this one's going to knock it right out of the park for us. I have a lot of questions. I would guess you do as well. Sarah Fogderud is here from AW Research. First of all, give her a round of applause. If you've had any kids in the band program at BHS or grandkids, they probably have had Mr. Fogderud. He's still doing it, right? He's still there? Yeah. My kids had him, and they loved not only Chris, but Sarah as well. She was around a lot. Sarah is a mean trombone player, if you've ever heard of the Rusty Crayfish. And then she also does, what do you call the church group? Is there a name for that group, or?
Oh, we do a jazz liturgy
Yes.
at our church, Lutheran Church of the Cross, that my husband Chris wrote. And
It's
we've done it
amazing.
at other churches in the area, so it's pretty cool.
They're amazing musicians, so talented, and we were fortunate to have them come to Word of Life and do it for us, so that was super cool. She currently is one of the co-owners of AW Research. I was asking a few questions about it. She can shed some more light on it, but it started back in 1972 by how many of you know a guy named Al Zibzar? Or knew a guy, sorry. He is now passed, and it's quite a story of how Sarah kind of came to this area and became a co-owner of that business. And but this is the place where we send our water samples and all of our data from the information that has been collected by Derek. And so we have all that data to look at now that she will share tonight. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this changes over the next few years, or doesn't change. So I am going to turn it over to her, and I'm going to turn this little camera here so we can see her on here. And okay, now you can say hi. White's in.
Hi, everyone.
All right. Anything else, Sarah, or are we
No,
good to go?
I can take it from here.
All right, you're on.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me. We've been working with you guys for several years now on your water quality samples.
Oh, yeah, I need to kind
Yeah,
of
maybe
go
you
back
want
and
the
forth.
camera on that.
Okay.
That's more
How am I going to do
interesting
that and eat a root beer?
Well, anyway, again, I'm Sarah. I'm known as Lake Sarah at the lab. We have two Sarahs that are owners. I'm the one who deals with all the wonderful lakes in our area, and it's been my pleasure to get to know lakes. I grew up in North Dakota on the Missouri River, so I knew nothing about lakes until I went to college in Minnesota, down at Gustavus and St. Peter. Got a biology degree, moved up to Brainerd when my husband Chris got the teaching job at Brainerd High School, and I did not know what I was going to do with this biology degree that I just got. And someone said, hey, there's a lab out at the airport, you should call up there. So I did, and eventually got a job, and I've been doing it ever since. So I was privileged to work for Alan for 6 years. Before he passed away, I learned a lot. He was a super smart guy. And now it's been really awesome to own the company and kind of take ownership and take it our own direction. So, yeah, so I'm gonna breeze through some scientific stuff. If there's questions, please stop me. Again, this can be pretty informal. I'm gonna try to make it understandable, and hopefully you'll have some things to take away and take home with you today. So this is kind of my outline. We're gonna talk about how we measure water quality, something called Trophic State Index. We're gonna talk about some trends on your lake, some water quality concerns, and then we'll kind of end with how you can help, and we'll leave some time for questions as well. And you'll have to excuse my voice. I'm getting over a cold, so I'm hoping you all can hear me and hope my voice lasts.
I think we're good.
All right, so first of all, measuring water quality. The standard for measuring water quality on the lake is a measurement called Trophic State Index. And what we do is we go out on the lake and we take a sample once every month from May through September at the deepest point on the lake. We take water samples, we take a Secchi disc reading. A Secchi disc is that white disc you can see in the picture there. We basically lower it down into the water until we can't see it anymore. And where that disappears, that's our reading, so we measure the depth of that. And so when we track that over time, we can kind of track the clarity of the water, and that gives us a good indicator of how well the water's doing. Okay, I click on the right spot here. So the samples are analyzed by a certified lab. So that's what our laboratory does. We take those samples and we look at the total phosphorus and the chlorophyll A. And then we report those results to the Lake Association, and they also get reported to the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency for inclusion in the state water quality database. So that's kind of a holding point for all of the water quality data in the state. So you can go, it's really cool actually, you can go in and look at any lake at any point in time and see what the water quality was. So here's your beautiful White Sand Lake. The sampling point that we collect is that site 203. I don't know the pointer. It's the one in the deepest hole. So if you look on the beautiful little cutout map, that dark blue is your deep hole, and that's where the water sample is collected. So site 203. There have been other sites monitored, but that's kind of the main monitoring point. So TSI, Trophic State Index, what we're actually looking at is lake productivity. So it's a number, actually. We take those water quality parameters that we looked at, the total phosphorus, the chlorophyll A, and the second reading, and we use an algorithm, which is basically just a mathematical formula, calculated into an index value from 0 to 100. So basically, the lower the value, the cleaner the lake. So when we're measuring lake productivity, there's really not like a good lake or a bad lake. Every lake kind of has its own natural state that it's going to be in. Some lakes are naturally more eutrophic or high productivity. They have a lot more sediment in the bottom. There's a lot of nutrients available for plants to grow, for fish, for birds. They're highly productive. There's other lakes that are cleaner, where the water is very clear. You don't have as many nutrients available to grow plants. So basically, we're looking at higher nutrients is higher productivity. There's basically more food for things to grow in the lake. So I like these pictures that the UW Extension over Wisconsin has of what these lakes kind of look like. It gives you a visual. So in a lagotrophic lake, this is a very clean lake. This is a low TSI number. We mostly see these in northern Minnesota, in the forested areas. They're large, they're deep, they have sandy, rocky bottoms. There's, very minimal amount of plant growth, just enough to kind of support a few types of fish. Mesotrophic lakes are what we have in our area of the state. They're more moderately productive. This looks a little bit more familiar, probably more white sand looking. We've got a little bit more sediment built up on the bottom of the lake. We've got some more plants growing. There's some more different types of fish, birds, mammals, lots of different wildlife in these types of lakes. They can undergo periods of oxygen depletion, which can help release more nutrients through internal loading. So they kind of have their own nutrient cycles that kind of fuel this. Eutrophic lakes, this is where we're looking at more kind of swampy lakes down in like southern Minnesota. We see these. They're shallower, they have many layers of sediment that have built up over the years. They're highly productive. These would be like a wild rice kind of lake. Lots of plants can grow. There's abundant nutrients for lots and lots of life to be supported. And a lake will, over thousands of years, naturally undergo an aging process where it kind of moves naturally from this oligotrophic to mesotrophic to eutrophic state. Now, what happens when we begin developing the shoreline of these lakes is we're speeding up that eutrophication process so that the lakes are kind of aging more quickly than they would naturally. So this just kind of gives you an idea of what we're looking at as far as what these types of lakes look like. So where does white sand fall? You are kind of right on the lower end of the mesotrophic scale. Your overall TSI, if we look at the whole history of monitoring, which goes back to the early 90s on White Sand Lake, your overall TSI value is a 44. So that's your grade as a lake, basically, but you're mesotrophic. If you look at the graph, or the chart there shows you kind of compared to, the first column is the 10-year average. So when we look at the Secchi depth, which measures the clarity, you're at a 41 over the last 10 years. Chlorophyll A, which measures the algae content, or the amount of biomass in the water, you're at a 46. Total phosphorus, which is the nutrient component, you're in a 45. Compared to other lakes in the same ecoregion, so that just basically means other lakes in this part of the state. You're kind of right in the middle of that normal range. So you compare very well to other lakes in this part of the state. There are more, if you look at the number of samples, there are many more Secchi depth readings than there are the actual water samples. So most of this data is based on the water clarity. As far as trends, the water clarity is really stable, quite stable over time. It's even improving a little bit. If you look at it all the way back to the early 90s, it has improved a little bit over time. We do need a little bit more data to analyze the trends for the total phosphorus and the chlorophyll A. We just don't have quite enough to get a good trend analysis for those. I'm a visual person, so I like to see it visually. This graph shows the average TSI value for each of those three parameters. So the total phosphorus, which I guess I haven't explained these very well yet. So total phosphorus is the #1 nutrient that we're concerned about when it comes to lake water quality. Phosphorus is what fuels the plant growth, the algae growth. So it's the most important thing to monitor as far as nutrients in the lake. The chlorophyll A is a measure of the plant biomass, the actual algae that's in the water at that point in time. So the orange squares are the phosphorus on this graph, the green diamonds are the chlorophyll A, and then the blue triangles are the Secchi. So, and these are all the TSI values, so the scale on the side there pointing from 30 to 70 is that trophic state index scale. So lower is cleaner. If you get up to the 70, that's more of a eutrophic or a highly productive lake. So you can kind of see your water clarity is really hovering just above 40. Sometimes it dips below, but it's not super. It doesn't have a real trend to it, either one way or the other. It's really just kind of deviating. From year to year it varies, but it's right around that same mark. We see a little bit more variation in the chlorophyll A and the phosphorus readings. But again, not really enough to note a trend. You can see in 2021, that orange square, that phosphorus is your highest reading that we've seen, and that I think coincides with the drought, because lower water levels will also kind of emphasize those nutrients because they concentrate in the lower water levels. This is kind of a zoom in of the most recent 7 years where we have data for each of those three parameters. So you kind of see how they actually do deviate from each other. The phosphorus some years will show a higher TSI than the Secchi. And again, 2021, you definitely kind of peaked in phosphorus and it's come down a little bit since then. These are all very natural deviations, and so it's important to note we can't really tell much just from one reading. A lot of people will say, oh, what does this phosphorus number mean? And the answer is it doesn't really mean much. It only means anything when you put it into the context of this full trend. We really need data to compare data to. And so that's why it's important that you do this kind of monitoring over a long period of time so that we have a baseline so we can kind of see, is it trending one way or another? And you guys thankfully have a lot of really good data. And as Brian was talking about, it'll be really interesting to see now with zebra mussels in the lake, how those trends, if that changes, which I would imagine it probably will. But it's nice to have that baseline. Another way that we can kind of look at the data is an average by month. So here I've taken the historic, average Seki depth now, so we're looking at feet. This is the water clarity in feet, every month. So the average for May, is right around 11, 12 feet. You know, you can see that it gets a little bit better in June. You can see a little bit deeper into the water on average in June. And then throughout the summer, you kind of lose a little bit of clarity, which is normal. As algae and things start to grow in the water, as it warms up, you'll lose a little bit of that clarity throughout the summer. But honestly, this is a very kind of a flat curve. A lot of lakes will see a real sharp increase, or decrease, I should say, in water clarity throughout the summer. You guys are honestly fairly consistent from month to month, which is interesting to see. I also threw up there the little Seki disc graphics. That's what Derek measured last year in each of those months. So you kind of see how an individual reading compares to the average. So like last September, you know, his Seki reading was 14 feet, but on average you're more around 10, 11 feet. So this is the kind of things, when you have this data, we can kind of look at it and pull out these pieces of information and start to understand a little bit about what the lake is doing each month. Any questions so far? I know that I'm going through this kind of fast, but I could be here all night talking about it, so.
Will we see a spike this year with the low water for phosphorus?
I'm not sure. A lot of lakes are looking pretty clean this year. And, you know, phosphorus also has to do a lot with the rainfall that we get and the runoff that comes in. We hadn't had a lot of that yet. Now we've kind of got more of it, so I expect we'll see readings kind of go up. It's hard to predict some of these things. Yeah?
What does TSI stand for?
TSI stands for Trophic State Index.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, trophic basically means productivity. So the trophic state is how productive the lake is essentially what that's measuring. Good question. All right, so here's the big question. Zebra mussels. In other lakes in the area that have zebra mussels, this is what we've seen. Improved water clarity. They can temporarily reduce the algae and the phosphorus levels as well. So your TSI values will kind of sharply lower. So you'll start to look a lot cleaner as far as the lake goes. Because keep in mind, one adult zebra mussel can filter 1 liter of water per day. I mean, it's the size of your pinky, and it can filter 1 liter of water a day. And there's gonna be millions of these in the lake. So your lake water is turning over and being filtered, I don't know how frequently, but a lot. You know, they're taking all of that available food out. So it's gonna have an impact on the food chain. It's gonna have an impact on the water clarity, which is gonna allow plants to grow deeper than they did before. So there's lots of changes that zebra mussels will bring. So like I said, your trends may show an improvement, but it's kind of a false improvement. So that's always a caveat to kind of keep in mind when you see those Seki discs or Seki depths increasing, is that zebra mussel effect. So a side effect of zebra mussels as well is they can increase the vulnerability of your lake to other problems like algae blooms, excessive plant growth. Like I said, the water clears up so plants can get more sunlight deeper. And invasion of other aquatic invasive species, because that increased water clarity can kind of open up places where plants and other invasives can come in and grow. There's also more recent research by the Minnesota AIS Research Center down at the University of Minnesota, which is an amazing place, by the way. If any of you have had a chance to tour it or hear any of their researchers speak, they're doing great work. I put their website up there. I really encourage you to visit it and learn some more about what they're doing. They have recent research that also shows lakes with zebra mussels also have an increased mercury content in their fish tissue. So it can actually cause fish to absorb, or not absorb, but that bioaccumulation of mercury in the fish can become greater in lakes with zebra mussels. So there's lots of implications, for zebra mussels. However, the good news is, every lake that I work with, that has zebra mussels, they have learned to live with them, and it just kind of becomes part of the lake and what you do. They will go in cycles, so you will see a boom happen, and they'll be everywhere. And then a couple years later, you'll hardly see any, because they kind of work themselves out of a job. You know, they eat up all the food and then they all die. So they kind of go in cycles, and the cycle's gonna vary depending on the lake, and we'll just kind of have to see what that looks like on white sand. But yeah, so it'll be interesting, like I said, with your water quality data to see how that changes.
Question,
Yeah.
does anything prey on the zebra mussels? Is there something that eats them?
Yes, as when they're little villagers, the little larva form, fish will eat them. Some of the research they're doing at the University of Minnesota Center is they're looking at genetically modifying the zebra mussels so that they can't form their shells. And that's one way they're thinking about controlling them, is to kind of introduce these genetically modified zebra mussels. So there are solutions out there, and honestly, the fact that you guys have held them off this long should give you hope, because they're much closer to solutions than they were, say, 10 years ago, when a lot of lakes around here got them. So, yeah.
If they don't have shells, then we can eat them?
You have to eat a lot of them, they're pretty small. Yeah.
Are they in the lake bottom, or are they just attached to poles and gills?
So zebra mussels the question is, are they on the lake bottom, or are they attached to things? And they do need to attach to survive. So they need hard surfaces to attach to. So they can attach to rocks. They will attach to plants, docks, lifts. That's why you see them so much on docks and lifts, because that's a nice hard substrate for them to attach to. Another thing that they're doing at the research center is trying to figure out how to prevent them from forming their little threads that they use to attach. Because if they can't attach, then they can't survive. So there's work being done out there. Oh yeah, they will attach to pontoons. They'll attach to just about anything they can get their little threads onto.
So can you just scrape them off and gather them up, take them out of the lake if you see them on your dock post?
Yep, you can sure scrape them off. It's hard work. They have some little cement that they make to really attach themselves, so they're tough to scrape off, but it can be done. You can pressure wash them off. Yeah, but it's.
Fish that eat the adult mussels, fish that eat the adult mussels, like sheep's head fish.
Yeah, some fish can probably get in the shells and eat them. The problem is they're just so good at reproducing. I mean, one of those little zebra mussel adults can produce millions of villagers. I mean, so the fish can't keep up is the issue. They just are so prolific that nothing can keep up with them as far as predation, you know. Even Daryl probably couldn't keep up.
Can you explain exactly what you mean when you talk about algae bloom? Is that when it gets kind of funky on the top, or
Yeah.
is this below?
So there's lots of different kinds of algae. There's harmful algae, and then there's non-harmful algae. When we talk about an algae bloom, that's basically when we see, you know, just an explosion of algae growth. And a lot of times it'll look like, depending on the type, it'll look like pea soup on the top. It'll be real kind of scummy. Sometimes if it's like a filamentous algae, it's like blobs of it that'll be kind of floating around on the lake. I mean, you kind of know it when you see it, you know. Sometimes it smells. Typically the harmful ones are the ones that smell. They're the ones that look like paint. Like if you stick something in it, it'll stick. If you stick a paddle in it, it'll stick on the paddle. We don't see those harmful algae blooms too much up here, thankfully. Those are much more in southern Minnesota where they have a lot more agriculture. But yeah, you kind of know it when you see it. But if you see just a bunch of green stuff in the water, and it's something that you wouldn't want to swim in, that's an algae bloom. Yeah.
And you can see where the waves have come up and it leaves a line on the shore.
Yep, it'll leave a line. It'll kind of look like, it'll be like a bathtub ring on things, you know, with the algae. Yep.
And then it's clear again. I mean, what happens to it? Where does it go?
It gets eaten up. It gets, yeah, algae has a short lifespan, so it kind of works its way through the life cycle and it's gone, yeah, yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Any other questions about zebra mussels? Yeah,
Our neighbor has a cabin on Upper South Lawn, and they give them collection containers to put on their docks.
oh, are they part of the research program?
I
Where they're
think so.
monitoring? Yeah, so the University of Minnesota has a research program where they will, what they're trying to do is figure out where they like to grow on the lake and figure out the distribution. And so they're looking for lakes to sign up, so if White Sands interested, you certainly could contact them. But they're looking for several people on one lake to put these little tiles out. And they let the tiles sit out off the end of your dock. The zebra mussels will come and attach throughout the season, and then at the end of the season, you pull it up, you take a picture of it. And then they actually use AI now to count the number of adult mussels growing on the tiles. And so they're compiling this huge database to try to figure out these different conditions, to understand where the zebra mussels kind of tend to be more. So, yeah, there's, like I said, check out their website. I would highly encourage you because there's so many cool research projects that they're doing. It'll give you a lot of hope. It always gives me hope when I hear them talking about it because they're coming up with some real solutions to some of these problems, so. All right, and you heard this one mentioned already, but I can't come to the Lake Association in Cronin County and not talk about this because this is the next thing that's coming. It's already here. Starry stonewort was found in Middle Cullen and Rush Lake last year, so it's here in the county. You guys already have milfoil, so you kind of know what an invasive plant can do, how prolific it can be, and how much it can really, affect your navigation and your enjoyment of the lake. This one is much, much worse than milfoil. The real problem with it is it's an algae. It's a macroalgae. So it looks like a plant, it grows like a plant, but it's not a plant. So it's not it doesn't have a vascular system. So you can't treat it with an herbicide like you treat a normal plant because every portion of that plant is made up of a single cell. And so the herbicide has to touch every cell to kill it. Every single cell of that whole structure can grow into a new plant. Algae, it's not a plant. So with this one, early detection is key to controlling it. They have a chance of controlling it on Rush Lake because they found it early and they were able to contain it and hand pull most of it out. And this year there's hardly any left. So the early detection program that Brian was talking about, if you can get a few people on the lake to sign up for that and throw a rate out at the public access every couple of weeks, every week, and just monitor for starry, it's really your best chance. And we know that early detection can really help to control it. Yeah?
Is it true that starry stonewort doesn't really designate or doesn't have really roots, it's just floating?
It does actually root into the bottom, but it's an algae, so it's not a normal plant, so it doesn't have roots like a normal plant. But yes, it does actually grow from the bottom. And on Rush Lake, they've had a lot of success in actually hand pulling the plants out. They had huge barges and they were just pulling it all out of the lake. But this year they report very little growth, so there's hope to controlling it that way. They are also treating it with an algicide. Now that they've kind of limited the amount of it, they actually feel like they can treat it a little bit. Middle Cullen, I believe, is also doing a treatment this, coming up here in a couple of weeks. I think they're treating in Middle Cullen too, to kind of see if that works.
And if it's left unchecked or undetected, what will happen?
If it's left unchecked, it will eventually take over the whole lake. And just look up, if you want to get a little scared about it, Google search Lake Coronis. That's the first lake. Yeah, Dan probably knows all about it.
My brother, they had a home on Lake Coronis.
Oh, yeah.
And
So
so
how did Dan?
they started started at the community park, you know, public place. And the DNR did really help at first, but they spent hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to deal with that. And now I think they have like, machines that kind of just like pick up the weeds and.
They harvest it,
Yeah, kind of harvesters
Yeah.
and stuff, but it does, it's kind of like floaty stuff. I mean, it does take over. I mean, it's really unbelievable. But they spend, on Lake Coronas, they have a lake improvement district, and it's $500, 100 foot that you pay as far as to help deal with this. So in other words, it's like hundreds of thousands of dollars they're spending to deal with this.
It's very, very expensive. And they're still just barely controlling it to the point where they can still use the lake, you know, it's very scary how quickly this one can take over. So early detection is key, so I would get yourself familiar with what it looks like. Keep an eye out for it, you know, tell everyone you know, because it was far away, it felt very far away a couple years ago, and now it's like right on our doorstep, so.
How old is it when it actually has what look like the flowers?
So yeah, those are actually called bulbils, those little stars. They're like little, almost like a potato. It's like a little starchy thing, and it drops hundreds and thousands of those into the sediment, and it sprouts from those as well. And once those are in the sediment, that's the real issue. On Rush Lake now, they're trying to figure out, okay, we can handle the biomass by pulling it out, but now we've got all these bulbils in the sediment that it's gonna just keep coming back from. I don't know exactly, that's a good question, how old the plant needs to be before it produces those bulbils. I would guess it probably would do that within the first couple months of growing. I mean, plants like this that's kind of what they do. They're meant to grow and reproduce, so.
I mean, I can picture identifying it with one of those, otherwise it just kind of looks grassy.
Otherwise, it looks like a lot of our native, you know, that Cara, the kind of rough algae that grows on the bottom of the lake. It looks a lot like some of our natives. But this is how it was identified on Rush, was with the bulbils. So they are very distinctive. If you see that, you know you got it.
So is there a certain depth that you're likely to see it for the first time?
I would say you're probably most likely going to see it in the public access. This on Middle Cullen, they found it growing in, I think, 25 feet of water. So it can grow a lot deeper than some of the other plants. So it's hard to say, yeah. But certainly within that littoral, you know, zone around your shoreline, up to 15 feet of depth, it certainly would be easy for it to grow there. Yep.
Would you see this wash up on your shore?
You certainly could, yeah.
Suppose if a motor went through some.
Yeah. Yep, you certainly could, and it would kind of look kind of bunchy like that. Yep. Kind of grassy.
So Sarah, when you said it, you find it most likely on the public access, does that mean it's being transported in by boats?
Yeah. Boat, yeah, that's, any AIS, boats is the #1 mode of transportation. People always say, oh, you know, turtles and birds and all this. Yes, theoretically, but the thing that's really transporting these things is boats. That's what they've done research and it's shown, it's boats bringing it in. So if you're gonna look for it, those are the places where boats are accessing the lake from other lakes. That's where you wanna look, because that's where you'll find it first, most likely.
Do birds ever spread and stuff like that?
Birds, in theory, they certainly could. Yeah,
Not known.
it's not really known, but we do know that boats are the #1 way that these are. If you just look at the way they have spread geographically, it's the most common lakes that are transported between Lake Minnetonka to Mille Lacs to Gull to Pelican. You know, all these popular lakes. The white sand, yeah, that's where it goes. Is where the boats go.
So, and I don't know if this is a question for maybe the board, Brian. So, how would a lake association go about getting like a spray station, or when boats come in, where they could be sprayed? Or is that something the DNR would help with? Or the city? Or
guess I've only ever noticed, what, a couple, there's one on Gull periodically, there's one up in Cross Lake, but I suppose it's cost though, you know, it's not cheap to run something like that.
Yeah, there are, I know the county has mobile decon units that are out and about in the summer. There is a private company that sells them that you can invest in and put at your public access. I'm assuming you probably need DNR permission, because you need DNR permission to do anything at public access, but,
Well, hearing what you're saying, it's becoming an issue in all of our lakes,
Yeah.
and being transported. It's probably something sooner than later to.
yeah.
see
Well,
what
and having inspectors at the landing does make a difference. So I don't know what kind of hours you guys get for inspections, but
400 and something.
yeah, it's usually not enough. But if you have volunteers that can also do inspections, sometimes that can help fill in the gaps a little bit. But those do really work to help educate voters too about these issues.
And how does somebody
With those
at
shower
the
things.
access
You have to use them.
convince the stranger who's coming with their boat to make sure and clean it at the cleaning station?
Right.
When you don't have any power, it has to be public compliance, and
Yeah.
if they don't live on the lake, they
Yeah,
don't
they don't
really
care.
probably care.
Right, I know, that's the hard thing about all of this, is it just, we're relying on people to do the right thing. In my experience, most people want to do the right thing, because they love the lakes too. And a lot of times they just don't know, and so it's educating. I mean, how many people here have heard a story before, like, a year ago? What's going on? But anyway, I wanted to bring this up because, I know AIS is something you guys are dealing with, and I don't wanna, like, scare you too much, but this is definitely what's coming next. So let's talk a little bit about phosphorus. So this is the other thing, and I mentioned this is the nutrient that really fuels the plant and algae growth. And in our lakes around here, this is the one thing that we're really concerned about when we're talking about changes in our lake. So, when we take a lake from a natural shoreline and we start adding things like houses and sidewalks and streets and gutters and septic systems and all these other things, we're adding all these phosphorus sources that weren't there before. And so when we live on a lake and we use the lake, we really need to be conscious of what we're doing and how it can affect adding more phosphorus to the lake than would normally have been there. So phosphorus, comes from natural things. It's in soil, it's naturally coming into the lake from the atmosphere through rain. It's naturally getting re-released from the lake sediments in a process called internal loading. So all those natural sources of phosphorus, that's things we can't control as people. We have no control over what comes from the sky or what gets reintroduced through the lake sediments. But we can control the locally controlled sources over here. We can control what comes off of our shoreline. We can control what we do on our lawn. So I'm just gonna talk a little bit about some of the things you guys can do to help reduce the amount of phosphorus coming into the lake, and hopefully thereby improving the water quality and reducing, some of the potential for these plants and other things to get out of control. There's three main things to keep an eye on. And I do have a question. Is anyone on White Sand Lake on a septic system? Or are you guys all on city sewer? Yes. Hey, that's one right off the list. You can check that one off. You don't have to worry about it. All right. So as far as yard care, this is one of the most important things you can do. And it seems like a little thing, right? But it's a little thing that can make a big difference. When you're thinking about your lawn, mow your grass to just a little bit higher height. Instead of going like 2 inches or lower, which is what most people do, set your mower so that it goes to 2.5 to 3 inches instead. Just keep your grass a little bit longer. It encourages your grass to be actually healthier. The roots will grow deeper and get more water and nutrients from the soil, so you don't need to fertilize as much. And that taller grass will actually slow the rate of runoff across your lawn and allow more of that water water to soak into the soil. So just a simple thing like that, just not mowing your grass quite so short. This picture's an oldie but a goodie. If you think about it, when you're fertilizing your lawn, a lot of that fertilizer does end up right in the lake if you're not careful. So just don't do it. There's really not a whole lot of need to fertilize your lawn. Test your soil, does it actually need to be fertilized? If you do need to fertilize, do it only in the late summer, when there's less rain, less chance of it running off, plus it gives your grass a boost before it goes dormant. It's actually the best time to fertilize. Use only phosphorus-free fertilizer, which is Minnesota law, but there's still some out there that you can get. So the middle number on all fertilizer should be 0 if you're putting it on your lawn. And another really important thing to do, whether you fertilize or not, is to leave a natural buffer along your shoreline. Native plants do the best job here because they have deep roots. They can help stabilize your shoreline. They also are beautiful. They can add a lot of beautiful interest to your shoreline. They protect your shoreline from erosion. And even a very narrow buffer, just anything, as much as you can leave. The more the better, but even just a narrow buffer can really provide a lot of protection to the lake from that sheeting runoff from your lawn. So this is a nice picture. It can be a really beautiful thing. I know a lot of us we kind of grew up with that aesthetic of, perfectly manicured lawn all the way down to the lake. But that's really not good for the lake. So some of the benefits, keep the geese at bay. I hear a lot of people complain about geese on their shoreline.
Yeah.
All those geese are in our yard all the time. And I go, well, what does your yard look like? Well, it's mowed. We have this nice open lawn. Geese love that because they can see you. If you have some taller grass and things, that'll keep them away because they don't like that. They can't see predators. So reduce your yard maintenance. Just don't work so hard on your lawn. Just enjoy your lake. So this is kind of what we're trying to avoid. These are the don't pictures. You can see, we got this lawn coming all the way down, especially that one at the bottom, a nice sloped shoreline with that grass all the way down. Every time it rains, everything is running right down into the lake. And it may seem like a small thing, like, oh, it's just a little stretch of the lake, but it really can add up over time. So just a small change, like adding a little buffer strip on the edge of that shoreline would really improve the lake. Minimize your runoff. There's lots of ways to do this. I always like to say, next time it rains, put on your raincoat, walk around your property, see where the rain's running off, see where it's pooling up. Are there places where you could catch that water before it runs down to the lake? Use some rain barrels, dig some small ponds or plant some rain gardens where the water can kind of collect and seep into the soil before it sheets out into the lake. Think about what kind of pavement you have on your property, especially on the lake side. Do you have a straight pathway that, a concrete path that goes straight down to the lake? If you do, maybe you could make it meander a little bit so that the water doesn't wash straight down. Anything you can do to kind of slow that water down will help to settle out any of that sediment and things that contain phosphorus that'll wash down there. Septic system, we don't have to talk about this because you all don't have to worry about it.
It used to be a problem.
It used to, yeah. And honestly, that's one of the number one things, because if you think about where that septic goes, it's going into the groundwater, and the groundwater is the lake water. So that's good for you guys. That's probably one of the things that's kept your lake so nice over the years. Okay, so some action items for you to take home. Mow and fertilize less, work less hard on your lawn, enjoy life at the lake more. Plant a buffer, assess your lake shore, take a walk around. Maybe there's just a couple little things you can do. Everything makes a difference. You don't have to worry about that. Tell your friends and neighbors, that's the biggest thing. And be an example. Never underestimate the power of peer pressure. I think the more people that kind of adopt this natural shoreline look around the lake, it starts to become more normalized. And eventually that aesthetic will change and more people will want to adopt these practices.
seems like so much of the shoreline planting to do that, they're like really tall plants. Are there any that are just like 14 inches tall, so you can actually get the lake view, but still have the planting buffer?
Yes, I'm sure there are, yeah. I'm sure there are natural, native plants that would be shorter. Yeah.
Because whenever we see them, it's like these.
Well, you don't have to do your whole shoreline either. You could do some tall over here, leave a little, you can leave a little spot to get down to the lake, and that's perfectly fine. You know, just try to, every little thing you can do makes a difference, yeah.
So with, Moore Beach, I know most of the lake now people have. I'm seeing more where people are putting their campfires down on the
Oh.
beach. And what does that do to the lake?
That's a really good point. Campfires, don't put them near the lake. If the lake water can wash up into your fire pit, that's gonna be a big problem. The ash and everything in that fire pit is phosphorus heavy, you know, and if that lake water comes up and washes that all in, you're just fueling algae and plant growth. So yeah, keep your fire pit, if you're gonna bring it down to the lake, make it one that you can carry, so you can, you know, bring it back up to the further away, because that really does a lot of harm, a lot of harm. All right, that's all I have. I'm just gonna leave you with one quote that I love from Jean Goodall. What you do makes a difference, and you have to decide what kind of difference you want to make. So, like I said, just little changes on your shoreline, little changes in those practices can make a huge difference. All right, that's all I have. Is there any questions? A concrete step. The concrete step itself doesn't put out phosphorus, but the water can run off of that concrete very quickly. And so it will clear anything, any sediment or anything will get washed very quickly off of it. Yeah. Right, but yes, the smooth concrete won't slow the water down as much as like a rougher rock. Or you can use pavers where there's cracks for the water to seep in. Is a better option. Yep.
So I think you would agree that this information has been amazing tonight. I'm glad that we recorded it, and that I hope that we see thousands of views. We don't have thousands of people on the lake, but maybe hundreds would be great. Yeah. I did forget one thing. I wanted to thank Joe Clow and Justin Heitkamp at the Tea Hive for doing the swag thing again, and donating back to the Lake Association. So thanks, Joel and Justin, if you're watching this. And I hope that you ordered some stuff. And I think they've always tried to get it to you before the 4th of July. So hopefully that will be coming soon, because that's next week, right? Like Friday? Yeah. Crazy. All right. Again, thank you guys for coming. It's always great to see your faces, and thank you so much to Sarah. Another round of applause. And if you have any questions, I don't think this is on the video, so I'm going to turn that. And if you have any questions left for her, I'm sure you can ask her when we are adjourned. Anybody have a last question for the group before we do that?
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
You know, when people, you have people moving in and out,
Yes.
is there somebody designated to contact those people about our association?
We do try to contact people. Bob is really good at, when a house has been sold or changed over possession to a new owner, I do believe he makes contact. Could you confirm that for me?
He's pretty good at that.
Yes. Yep.
Good,
Yes.
thank you.
Yep.
How many?
We have lots of new people this year, I think, it seems like.
VRBOs, any change there?
The VRBO question has come up again tonight, and it is something that we actually were discussing as a possible small committee to just look into it some more and see if there's anything we can do to, maybe put a lid on at least where it's at now and not let it get more rampant.
How many are there?
We didn't quit.
Yeah.
I can't put an exact number.
I'd say
I'd say
become part of the fees that they pay to rent it to go towards the lake?
Well, I sure would think so. It would take somebody actually contacting the owners of those Verbos, which they should be paying the most, right? I mean,
Yes,
they could potentially be using the lake way more than a full-time resident. And so, you know, that's another thing that could be done if somebody was willing to do that. So hopefully that can happen, you know? So, anything else? I think we are 7:30, 1 hour and 1.5, so that is awesome. Thanks again, and if anybody is interested in becoming a volunteer for early detection, as Sarah was talking about, is very important. Please get a hold of me, and we'll talk to everybody later. Thank you again.